The birther bill is the requirement that any presidential candidate or any other candidate would have to show proof of citizenship. And if they didn't, then they would have to show a baptismal certificate or a certificate of circumcision. So it is something that I was felt very, very uncomfortable with, and I feel that it serves no purpose. So today I went on record and I vetoed it.
Arizona Governor Jan Brewer explaining her veto of that state's birther bill last night on Fox News Channel, including her own discomfort with the circumcision certificate loophole. Is that what we call it now? When the Arizona Republic asked supporters of the birther circumcision bill if they plan to try to override the governor's veto, at least one of them wearily said no. So the Mr. President, show me your birth or circumcision certificate bill might be dead in Arizona. But just as the birthers' hopes are being dashed in that state, they are coming true in the great state of Louisiana, where a birther bill was introduced just last week that would require candidates for federal office to submit their original birth certificates in order to get on the ballot in Louisiana. And no, there is no weird circumcision certificate loophole in the Louisiana bill, at least not yet. Today, Governor Bobby Jindal's office announced preemptively, before that bill has even passed, that if it does pass, he would love to sign it. Mr. Jindal's spokesman telling the New Orleans Times-Picayune, quote, if the legislature passes it, we'll sign it. And it's not just Bobby Jindal and the poor, sad Arizona legislature. Birther bills are really happening all over the place. This is no longer an obscure thing for Republicans. Birther bills have been proposed this session in, as far as we can tell, at least these 13 states. Nebraska's bill would actually require the parents of a candidate for president or vice president to have both been American citizens, and it seeks their birth certificates too. Parents. Constitution be darned. Nebraska wants to see them. Oklahoma's birther bill already passed the Senate there, and there is a public hearing set for the Texas birther bill tomorrow. That ought to be fun. This is what is happening in real state legislatures, in real states. Real lawmakers are introducing, and in some cases moving on, and in Arizona's case, passing legislation that would have the implication of keeping or trying to keep President Obama off the ballot in that state. And it's ridiculous on the one hand, but even if they don't succeed in keeping President Obama off the ballot, if they do get these things passed into law, they could succeed in diverting his campaign into legal challenges over getting him onto the ballot. So as ridiculous as this is, it is possible that this could affect whether or not Mr. Obama is on the ballot in every state in the country, and therefore whether or not he wins a second term. There's a new public policy poll out today of Iowa Republicans. 48% of them say President Obama was definitely not born in the United States. Another 26% of them say they're not sure whether he was born in the U.S. So a total of 74% of Republican voters in Iowa say either President Obama was not born in the United States or they're not sure. 74%. The Republican establishment is at great pains to downplay this birther thing, to say, oh, we don't believe the president isn't a citizen. Not for a second, not for a moment. That's weird. But meanwhile, while the big shot Republican establishment has been sort of minimizing and winking and nodding at this birther issue, it has taken hold entirely among the party's base. And it has the special convenient added bonus of having a potential real political impact, a real impact on whether or not Mr. Obama is reelected. If Bobby Jindal does sign this thing in Louisiana, or if all goes well during the public hearings in Texas tomorrow, and unless reason prevails in Oklahoma, conceivably the president really could be kept off the ballot in one or more of these states. Or those Republican officials in those states could try to keep him off the ballot, and he, again, could be diverted into legal challenges in order to try to get his name on there. This is an insane Orly Tates issue that excites the Republican base like Roswell alien sighting rumors. It is also a means of using public policy, however, to put Republicans' thumb on the scale for the next election. That is also what's happening with voter registration policy. We highlighted this yesterday as Kansas Governor Sam Brownback signed a bill that would make it harder to register to vote in Kansas than anywhere else in the country. This is a trend, actually, and it's not getting nearly enough political attention, particularly from Democrats. According to the Brennan Center, a nonpartisan think tank that studies this stuff, Republican lawmakers in these states, all 37 of them, are proposing legislation that would make it harder to vote or to register to vote in that state. In these 13 states, They're trying to make it really, really hard, tying the ability to vote to the ability to prove being the operative word, one's citizenship, a la the Kansas bill, which says essentially you're going to need a birth certificate or a passport in order to register to vote. In other words, say goodbye to the voter registration drive in the park, at your school, at the grocery store, unless you carry your birth certificate with you when you go to the grocery store or walk your dog. Why make it harder to register to vote? Why kill the voter registration drive in America? Well, here's a thought. Making it harder to register to vote means there will be fewer first-time voters in the next elections, fewer newly registered voters. And that has real implications for the Democratic versus Republican part of the world. In the 2008 election, according to our exit polling conducted at the time, 68% of first-time voters voted for Barack Obama. Only 30% voted for John McCain. First-time voters were perhaps particularly energized by Barack Obama in 2008, but they followed the general trend of first-time voters voting for the Democrat. So there is a political impact to all of these Republican proposals to make it harder to register to vote. Fewer first-time voters, and probably, therefore, fewer votes for Democrats, including for Barack Obama in the next election. On the one hand, this stuff is late-night AM radio conspiracy theory, new Black Panthers stealing the election, conspiracy theory, Fox in the afternoon craziness that rewards the most conspiratorial, most insane, fevered rantings of the right-wing base. In terms of Acorn and stolen elections, of which there really is no evidence whatsoever. On the other hand, it has a serious policy implication. This is not a federal story. This is not a Washington, D.C. story, and so it gets no national attention. But this is a coordinated effort by the conservative movement and Republican legislators and Republican governors across the country to make it structurally more difficult for Democrats to compete in elections, to tilt elections institutionally against Democrats and Democratic voters. Does the Democratic Party have a counter strategy for this? The president's choice to be the next chair of the Democratic Party joins us next.